Transferring wealth across generations starts with careful estate planning. A will provides instructions for distributing assets, but it must go through probate, which can be time-consuming and costly. For those looking to bypass probate and secure tax advantages, trusts may offer a reliable alternative. Options like revocable and irrevocable trusts allow more control over asset distribution and can shield wealth from legal claims. Charitable trusts, such as charitable remainder trusts or donor-advised funds, provide a way to support meaningful causes while offering tax benefits. These tools are valuable for individuals who want their legacy to include philanthropy. By understanding these estate planning tools, families can make informed decisions that align with their financial goals and values. Whether through a will, a trust, or a charitable giving plan, strategic planning ensures a smooth wealth transfer process, preserving assets for future generations while honoring personal values and aspirations.
Andrew, you've seen families in conflict or even destroyed by inheritances. What are some common pitfalls that families face when they don't do a comprehensive estate plan?
Yeah, we have a saying in the estate planning world that you never truly know a person till you share an inheritance with them. And my law partner and I, we wrote an article for Trust and Estates magazine a few years ago called Grats versus Gratitude. And all these tools that we're talking about, trusts, wills, all these things, to me, that's all they are, just tools. And I always hate just throwing them out there because the tools that I need to use to accomplish your goals for your family are going to be different than, the other families that are on this call. So to me, choosing these things just depends upon on actually what you're trying to accomplish. We like to start sort of different. I like in Entrusted, our book, we talk about these entrusted families, the people that successfully navigate this wealth transfer beyond 3 generations. Is number one thing is they know who they are and what they believe. And I think that's, they know their core values. And not many families can say that these days. We used to be able to say that. You used to know what it meant to be part of your family. I mean, we think there needs to be 3 expectations that are clearly laid out for every member of the family. And everybody needs to know what can they expect from being part of the family. I mean, there's got to be a benefit to being part of your family and what common expectations come from that. Like, just as a corny example, we have a family ranch up in southwest Montana that everybody loves to go, and we've had amazing family reunions there, and it's a gathering place for the family. And everybody gets to be, use it as long as they clean it and treat it nice and so forth. And so it's a benefit from being part of our family. Everybody needs to know as a second expectation what they cannot expect from being part of the family. Like, just because I have some money in the bank doesn't mean you do, right? You're expected to work for it and be productive in your own life. And then they need to know what's expected of them. Every member of the family needs to lay that out. And so few families, they actually take the time to actually do that. And once I kind of know what the family dynamics are and what their goals are, then I can choose all these various tools. And yes, I believe that everybody ought to do some sort of an estate plan, literally from the age of 18. And what that estate plan needs to look like, the comprehensiveness to it, the complexities to it, is going to completely depend upon each family's individual circumstances.
Rabbi Lapin, given how common it is for a second generation or third generation to spend or deplete family wealth, it's not easy to prepare a family for the future. What can one do?
Well, starting much earlier than people think. Andrew spoke about creating some kind of plan already at the age of 18, and that sounds really, really good to me. But financial education and the understanding what money is and the role that it plays within society, I think has to start much, much earlier. And so some of the things I discuss with parents very often is, do you give children an allowance, or are they expected to do chores in exchange for that? And many parents, particularly parents who came from more straitened circumstances and who've now made good, are extremely reluctant to help children do that. But it's a horrible mistake, because if you think about it, it's a perverse thing, but the reality is that just in the nature of human psychology, we tend to be much more connected emotionally. We love much more those to whom we give than those from whom we receive. There's the famous story of Winston Churchill, who had loaned some money to a fellow who constantly was a thorn in his hide in the Parliament in Westminster. And after Churchill had loaned him some money, the guy turned all agreeable, and he never contradicted Churchill, never interrupted his speeches because he owed him money. And Churchill went up to him and said, "Look, if you don't go back to your old ways, if you don't pick up again, doing everything you did and prickling at me, I'm going to take that money back. I'm going to demand it back instantly. I need you back the way you were." We all feel uncomfortable with those who have given us, but we feel very good to those whom we've given. And this is why it is that in some research I did, I discovered that there's a number of cases in Los Angeles County of children who have evicted parents from properties owned by the children in which the parents were tenants. I was not able to find a single case of parents who had evicted a child. I'm sure it exists, but it was hard to find. My point is that not allowing your child to be givers, forcing your child to only be a taker, means you are increasing family tensions and ultimately resentment against the parent. That child is going to spend a lot of money on therapy later on, talking about how the parents ruined their lives. And so this is just an example of a really important fundamental principle from ancient Jewish wisdom, that you should start very early. Children, like before 10 years old, children should be already doing chores. Children should be helping around the house. Andrew spoke about what can be expected from a member of the family. And that's exactly what I'm coming down on. Absolutely. Remember this family. This is what you're expected to do. Here's how you're expected to do it. And here are ways in which you can earn money in this family. And you can also trade with your siblings. And so we believe that when people ask me, people sometimes have just had a baby and they say jokingly, well, how soon should we start their financial education? And my answer is, you're 9 months late already. This is something that as soon as you were pregnant, you and your spouse should have been building up clarity and uniformity so that you were ready to start imparting a coherent message to your new offspring.
Great advice. Kirby, can you give us some insight into the families that you advise in family offices? How do you help families navigate tax implications of different estate planning tools?
Well, I'm not an estate planner, so I typically don't advise on estate planning tools. However, I do work intimately with counsel and oftentimes with a lot of family office professionals who are working with trusts and different kinds of estate planning techniques. And I think one of the key critical items is that oftentimes the technical professionals are not the teachers, and they're oftentimes asked to be the educators. And that's usually putting people in the wrong hot seat to be teaching about these complex techniques to lay people. And I think sometimes you have to help meet the learner where they are and put the experts in the right places where they are. And there's sometimes the need to bridge those domains. It doesn't necessarily mean you pay the $1,000 an hour technical professional to teach the layperson, the 15-year-old or the 18-year-old or the 22-year-old how to read their trust. There's a lot of other good resources that can help bridge those domains. And I also find that we waste valuable time in family meetings and one-on-one mentoring when you should be doing fun things, building relationships, doing cool activities, using talking head, which is the worst thing I think you can possibly do. Do not spend millions of dollars bringing in high-powered speakers when you should be doing trust falls and having wonderful experiences together. Use other valuable resources to teach the basics and mechanics of finance and investing. And that's where we found that there's a missed opportunity. I mean, we built a whole suite of learning coursework at Tamron Learning that is really accelerated families' way to jump in and get knowledgeable. So again, I think there's a missed opportunity oftentimes that families teach the wrong things at the wrong times through the wrong people. And then they try to make people focus on decisions when they're not prepared with the right information to make the decisions. And for me, that is one of the most frustrating things, to ask a beneficiary, do you think this is a good decision? How do you feel about the asset allocation that your trustee is making? And they're like, I don't even understand the basics of investing. Why are you asking me? So we need to be better about educating and informing before we ask people to participate. And we also need to ask the technical professionals, hey, if you're not comfortable doing this kind of mentoring, let's put a success team around the beneficiaries, the family members, and that fits them, and not put the technical professionals in those roles if that's not their comfort level.
Interesting. Sounds like it does require a team. And it's fascinating to hear how a trust fall or just an outing going go-karting or something can lay the groundwork to have more successful discussions and meetings.
Andy, would you like me to add something here?
Please do, Jay.
Thank you. 3 things that I think would be helpful. First, as my panelists and your squib, Andy, have shown us, the great problem for the second and later generation members of families is to integrate into their selves, human selves, an action of creation by someone else that has nothing to do with them at all. The core action of the first generation of a family is creation, taking energy and turning it into matter, something that is remarkably complex for a human being to do. But the second generation and every generation after that has an integration problem, don't they? Whatever comes to them from that first generation, in the sense of the matter that has come from that energy, they must integrate. The first and most important thing is to understand it has nothing to do with them and their integrity whatsoever. So they have an existential issue. Can they integrate into their lives successfully something created by someone else? That's an energetic problem for them. This is very rarely understood in our field, but it's critically important to the well-being, after all, wealth is well-being of that human being. Second, in a very practical way, which didn't come up, so I'm going to add it here, I do believe very much, as Rabbi has said and my panelists have said, I'm a great believer that children should pay for their own college, yes, with the parents' or grandparents' assistance, but that there is a huge learning at that critical stage of life by learning how to receive, because these are gifts, these are not responsibilities for college. The law is very clear. You have a duty to education in high school, but you have no duty for higher education. This is a gift. And as the rabbi has said, learning to receive gifts, oh my goodness, and not receive transfers. Without getting into that, I wrote a book about it. The difference between a transfer and a gift is enormous to the possible integration. One is love, one is head. And third point, for trust, since this was in the squib, the great question of trust is, can the beneficiary be accounted to? For what? The great answer is, does this trust enhance my life, not support it? And by the way, that will be the next 30 years of question in our field, because the state of Delaware has just passed legislation enabling people to have a well-being trust. This is an extraordinary moment in our world where the beneficiary has been put back into the right position in trust by being able to answer, did this trust help my well-being? I put that as, did it enhance my life?
Interesting. What is a well-being trust?
Well, Delaware has said you can now have this, which means that the beneficiary, being concerned for the beneficiary's well-being, is the condition of care. As my colleagues know, every trustee is measured first by care, then loyalty and impartiality, but first by care. What does care mean? Does it mean keeping good books and investing? No, those are subordinate functions. The superordinate function is, does the trust enhance the beneficiary's life? And by the way, Andy, for 30 years, I have never written a trust that had a distribution function. I've only written trusts that have an enhancement function. In fact, I'll go further and say, as Andrew knows, and I'm sure the rabbi knows, certainly Kirby does, I will not write a trust that does not start saying it's a gift of love, and second, saying that it exists to enhance the lives of its beneficiaries. Of course not, because that's what the trustee is accountable for.
Yeah, Jay he's making a really important point here about the shift in how trusts are being viewed, because we're really going back to trusts can be traced back 800 years through Old English common law back to the Crusades, and it was this idea that the eldest son in the family, by right of primogeniture, was going to get all the property, but if he was 10 years old, somebody's going to come and take it from him. I mean, people weren't that excited about their kids having access to a lot of assets back then any more than we are now. And so, trust is just there's a whole bunch of different types of trust, but under modern law, they took the position, like Jay was just referring to, that it really was the primary goal of the trustee to keep books and make it have the most amount of income that it can possibly have. They had to make the assets productive and all of these various things. What this is now saying is that you can actually make purpose be the meaning behind the trust. What's the overall purpose behind it? And Delaware's codified it into this other thing. So it's really a change, and it's a change because of the demand. I mean, advisors, I don't care if you're an estate lawyer, a financial planner, or whatever, the demand in the marketplace is to have this conversation right now. We were presenting at an event down in San Diego, 500 advisors in the room, financial planners. And the very first thing that the speaker who came out said was that 91% of clients want their advisors to know their core values, who they are and what they believe. It's not that they need them to know what their net worth is, what is the number on that balance sheet. And it's an attempt to completely go towards what is the demand now of clients.
And Andy, coming back to my hand gesture, the pinky, Rabbi, this is spiritual capital, and spiritual capital is enhancement, well-being. Is the family working together to enhance each other's well-being? That's a spiritual question. And if it gets it right, purposing it, then it makes great decisions, the social capital together. It's a learning system. The human beings are thriving, and the financial capital has a purpose, growing these.
Yeah, I love the balance that's required, because we see that there are billionaires who are unhappy, and that's because their financial is fine, but the other elements are not. So we're going to move to segment 3.